The police believed him. The media believed him. Millions of strangers believed him. A grieving husband, a brutal home invasion, masked intruders who vanished into the dark. But this case was never about what happened in the shadows. It was about what happened before the crime, what was quietly erased, and the tiny digital details that refused to lie. Because while the world was chasing imaginary criminals, the real story was hiding in timestamps, heart rate data, and a memory card removed too early. This isn't a story about a monster who looked evil. It's about a man who sounded convincing, looked intelligent, and almost got away with murder. Stay with me, because by the end of this case, you'll understand how one carefully staged lie fooled an entire nation, and why the truth only surfaced when technology spoke louder than tears. And if you appreciate deep, intelligent true crime stories that go beyond headlines, take a moment to subscribe. These stories deserve to be remembered correctly. Now, let's begin. People love simple stories. A beautiful young woman meets an older man with status. He offers safety, direction, a future. They move fast. They post the highlights. They become the couple everyone watches. And then, one morning, the story snaps in half. The public looks for an obvious villain. The police look for something else. A mistake. Because in most staged crimes, there's always a mistake. Not necessarily a dramatic one. Sometimes it's a timestamp, a missing memory card, a door that forced open from the inside, a lie told too confidently. This is the story of the murder that almost convinced a nation. Almost. Her name was Madison Hart. And the man who told the world he survived a home invasion was the same man who controlled every door in the house. Madison was 19 when she died, young enough that most people still hear the word teen in it. Old enough to sign papers, smile for cameras, and tell herself she was choosing her life. She grew up in a place called Cedar Bay, Florida, a coastal town where the sunsets look like advertisements, where boats sit behind houses like extra cars. Her father was a civil engineer. Her mother worked in real estate, the kind of parents who didn't throw money around, but always seemed to have it. Madison was athletic, smart, quietly competitive. She was the kind of person who didn't need to be the loudest in the room. She just needed to understand the room. She loved the ocean. She loved movement, paddleboarding, open water swimming, diving. She also kept journals, actual pen and paper, because she didn't trust phones the way other people did. And then she met Noah Kincaid. Noah was 28 when they met, a helicopter pilot, former military contractor, at least according to his own stories. He had that specific kind of charm that doesn't feel like flirting at first. It feels like leadership. Noah didn't ask Madison questions the way normal people did. He asked them, like interviews. What do you want out of life? What are you going to do with your potential? Do you know how rare you are? Madison was 15 when their paths crossed at a local charity event. Noah was there in uniform. He arrived late. Everyone noticed. He told Madison he had flown over Cedar Bay earlier that day, just sightseeing, and recognized her school by the baseball field. He said it like it was destiny. The age gap was obvious. So obvious that people tried to make it invisible. They called Noah mature. They called Madison wise for her age. They called the relationship unconventional. And in America, unconventional is sometimes just a soft word for everyone is uncomfortable, but no one wants to start a fight. Madison's parents protested at first. Not publicly, privately. Noah responded by speeding the story up. He proposed fast. He talked about leaving Florida. He talked about a fresh start. He talked about how the world judges love because it's jealous. And Madison, who was young, flattered, and craving adulthood, confused intensity for devotion. They eloped the week after her 18th birthday. a courthouse in Savannah, Georgia. Simple ceremony, a few photos, a ring that caught the light perfectly. Online, it looked like romance. Offline, it was a shift in gravity. They moved to a suburb outside Raleigh, North Carolina, an area called Briar Hollow. New development. Trees still young. Houses close enough to hear your neighbor's garage door. Noah rented a 2-story home with a finished basement and a backyard that ended in a narrow strip of woods. The kind of woods that don't feel like nature. They feel like distance. They had a baby girl within the year. Ava, 11 months old when Madison was killed. And if you want to understand why the public believed Noah, start with the image of him holding Ava. He looked like the cover of a story people wanted to read. A young father, a grieving husband, a man targeted by violent criminals. That's the narrative. Now listen to the timeline. It was Tuesday morning, late spring. 3:58 a.m. on Noah's phone, according to him. He claimed he was asleep when the noise woke him. 3 men, he said. Hoods. Guns. One of them spoke with an accent he couldn't quite place. Another sounded local. They moved fast. Professional, he said. Like they'd done it before. They rushed the bedroom. Noah said he fought. He said they overpowered him. He said they tied his wrists behind his back and blindfolded him with duct tape. He said they tightened something around his neck, so he drifted in and out. He said he heard Madison crying. He said he heard their baby crying. He said the men demanded money. According to Noah, Madison begged. According to Noah, he told them where the cash was hidden. Inside a board game box, Monopoly. That detail hit the public like a movie scene. So specific, it sounded true. Noah said the intruders took the money, then jewelry, then electronics. But they didn't leave right away. He said they roamed the house like predators, room to room, taking their time. And then, according to Noah, one of them killed Madison, smothered her with a pillow. He said it wasn't quick. He said it was brutal. He said he couldn't stop it. He said he passed out. Then he woke up later to the sound of Ava crying. He said the house was silent except for her. Noah claimed he crawled, blindfolded, hands tied, using his face and shoulder to push himself across carpet. He said he got to his phone, and he called 911 with his nose. That was the story that flooded every screen. It sounded cinematic. It sounded impossible. It sounded like trauma. Police arrived around 6 a.m., and yes, what they saw was horrific. The home looked ransacked. Drawers open, clothes scattered, a board game box tossed aside, a security camera torn from the wall and placed on the couch. But the memory card was missing. And in the stairwell, they found the family dog, a husky puppy, dead, strangled with its own leash. Now pause right there, because that image is not just horror, it's theater. Strangling a dog is not a normal choice for a burglar who wants money. It's loud, it's intimate, it's time-consuming, it's messy. That kind of violence usually has a message. The first responders found Noah on the bedroom floor, taped and bound. They cut him free. They found Madison on the bed, face down, lifeless. Ava was beside her, crying, patting at her mother's back the way babies do when they don't understand permanent things. Madison's skin was pale, her lips bruised. There were marks that suggested she had fought for air. No sign of sexual assault. No obvious defensive weapon used. Just a prolonged, personal kind of death. The medical examiner later estimated the fatal attack lasted several minutes, not an instant. Several. And that matters, because the body tells the truth even when people don't. In the first hours, police treated Noah like a victim. They reconstructed his story the way law enforcement often does in the early fog of a scene. Point of entry through a basement window, a team of intruders, one lookout, A quick cash grab that turned violent. They called it targeted, premeditated. The public believed it because it was believable. There was known cash in the home. Madison's parents had recently transferred money to help them buy land in a nearby county, a down payment for their dream house. Noah mentioned that too. He told officers they didn't trust banks. He said they kept cash at home. That detail fit the narrative. It created motive for strangers. But investigators don't stop at narratives. They start collecting friction. And even in the first day, there was friction. No forced entry consistent with the violence described. Neighbors reported something strange. Not screams, not crashing, not the sound of a house being turned inside out. They heard a dog, crying, whining, a distressed animal sound that continued longer than a quick break-in would allow. No one reported men running through the neighborhood. No vehicle heard peeling away. And the security camera detail bothered detectives immediately. Criminal crews who disable cameras usually do one of two things. They destroy the camera entirely, or they remove the storage device quickly and vanish. They don't take time to rip it down and stage it like a prop on the couch. That placement felt intentional, like someone wanted investigators to find it, to focus on it, to assume professionalism. Then came the hood. A dark hood discovered near the back portion of the house. The only physical intruder evidence. No DNA on the tape that didn't belong. No clean fingerprints. No shoe prints that made sense. If this was a crew, they were ghosts. And ghosts usually leave something behind. Investigators canvassed the area, pulled neighborhood footage, doorbell cameras, traffic cams. They found a dark sedan cruising near Briar Hollow before dawn, then a motorcycle trailing behind it. It looked like a lead. It looked like the criminals. It looked like the story. And this is where the case became dangerous. Because when investigators want a story to be true, every shadow becomes proof. A week after Madison's funeral, police made an arrest. A man stopped on a highway near the South Carolina border with a fake ID. His name was Ivan Petrovich, at least on paper. But records said he'd used other names too. He was a burglary suspect, violent history, known to tie victims, known to threaten women. And he resembled the rough sketch Noah described from Under the Hood. The media exploded. People wanted a monster. The police handed them one. Ivan was interrogated for days. He denied knowing Madison Hart, denied knowing Noah, denied ever being in Briar Hollow. Police pushed harder. Too hard. So hard that internal complaints later surfaced about excessive tactics, pressure that turned into punishment. And still, Ivan held the line. Then forensic results came back. His DNA did not match anything in the house. No connection. No stolen jewelry recovered. No cash. No Monopoly money trail. Nothing. The arrest collapsed. And when that happens in a high-profile case, the public doesn't just lose patience. They lose trust. The department quietly reassigned personnel. The investigation widened. They built a list of known robbery crews, street groups, organized burglary rings. They showed Noah mugshots. 10, 20, 50. Noah didn't identify anyone. And all the while he stayed in front of cameras. He spoke like a man performing grief. He thanked the community. He begged for justice. He said he wished this nightmare on no one. He posted photos of Madison. He posted about raising Ava. He stayed visible. That visibility was part of the strategy. If you are guilty, you can disappear. But if you are smart and guilty, you can become the symbol of the investigation. You can become the person the public protects. Noah Kincaid was not unintelligent. He understood optics. He understood timing. He understood what it means to guide an audience. But there's a problem with crimes that depend on performance. Data doesn't care about your acting. And as days turned into weeks, the detectives started doing what smart detectives always do. They stopped listening to the story, and they started listening to the devices. Because modern cases are not solved by one hero. They're solved by quiet contradictions, a missing memory card, a smartwatch pulse, a fitness app, a timestamp that doesn't match a testimony. And Madison Hart, despite being 19, left behind something most people don't expect. A private diary. Not just feelings, not just love, patterns, control. Fear written in a voice that didn't sound dramatic. It sounded practical. It sounded like someone trying to convince herself that the situation was manageable. And buried inside that diary were sentences that would later explain everything. Not what happened at 4:30 a.m., but what had been happening for months. And by the time investigators put those pages next to Noah's timeline, the perfect home invasion started to look like a staged masterpiece. A masterpiece with small cracks. Cracks that would eventually split the whole thing open. The first time detectives doubted Noah Kincaid, it wasn't because of a gut feeling. It was because of a timestamp. In modern investigations, instinct is a luxury. Data is the discipline. And data doesn't bend for grief, or charisma, or a man holding a baby on the courthouse steps. It just sits there, cold, exact, waiting for someone intelligent enough to ask the right question. The first question was simple. If 3 armed intruders invaded a home, trashed it, killed a woman, and fled, why did the neighborhood sound asleep? Detectives went door to door again, not for gossip, for sound. People remember sound. Neighbors didn't report shouting. They didn't report banging drawers. They didn't report a struggle with multiple men in the dark. They reported one thing: a dog crying in distress, not briefly. Not a single yelp, a sustained sound, like an animal trapped in fear. That didn't match Noah's version of fast, professional criminals. Professionals don't linger with pets. They get in, they get money, they get out. Someone strangled the dog with its own leash. That wasn't a robbery decision. That was personal. Then came the security camera. The camera Noah claimed the intruders ripped off the wall. It was found on the couch like a display. But the memory card was missing. Now here's what detectives know. Burglars don't carefully curate evidence. They don't stage little details to look robber-like. They remove the obstacle and leave. So investigators asked a more precise question. When was that memory card removed? Because if the card was removed during the attack, it supports Noah's story. If the card was removed earlier, it destroys it. They pulled the camera's internal logs. And that's when the case moved from rumor to mathematics. The system registered the card being removed at 1:21 a.m., not 4:30, not during the home invasion. 1:21 a.m., hours before the crime Noah described. That doesn't mean an intruder couldn't have removed it early, but it would require intruders to enter the home quietly, remove the card, leave, then come back later with guns and chaos. That makes no tactical sense, unless the intruders weren't intruders, unless the person removing the card already lived there. Then investigators looked at how Noah described entry. He said they came through a basement window, a small basement window, the kind you could slip a child through. But Noah also described one intruder as a tall, broad man. Overweight, big frame. Detectives measured the opening. They photographed it from every angle. Then they did what good investigators do when reality matters more than imagination. They tried to fit bodies through it. It didn't work. Not for anyone with the size Noah described. So either Noah was wrong about the window, or Noah was wrong about the entire event. And then, quietly, almost without ceremony, detectives pulled data from Madison's smartwatch. Madison wore it to track workouts, heart rate, sleep, Most people think those devices are harmless, but in homicide cases, they're truth machines. The watch showed Madison was asleep at 3:58 a.m. Her pulse was steady. Then at 4:05 a.m., her heart rate spiked. Not like someone waking up to check their phone. Not like someone rolling over in bed. This was a stress spike. Fear, fight or flight. And at 4:12 a.m., the watch recorded something worse. Her heart stopped. Noah claimed the attack happened closer to 4:30. But Madison's body, through a device on her wrist, was telling investigators she was already gone. That mismatch wasn't a memory error. It was structural. It meant Noah's timeline wasn't slightly wrong. It was built wrong. Then investigators pulled Noah's phone. They requested fitness data and motion logs. Because Noah claimed he was bound, blindfolded, drifting in and out, unable to move. But his phone showed movement during the same window. Not heavy steps, not a morning jog, but consistent motion, position shifts, short movements, like someone walking inside a home. It's hard to overstate how damaging that is, because the case wasn't about proving Noah lied in general. It was about proving Noah lied at a specific time, a time when a woman was fighting for her life. Now detectives decided to test Noah's most dramatic claim, the 911 call. Noah told the world he called emergency services with his nose, a perfect detail, a heroic detail, a detail that makes people stop questioning you. Investigators tried to recreate it. They used similar phones. They used the same model. They applied duct tape in controlled conditions. They tried to dial with the face. No one could do it. Not once. Not cleanly. Not reliably. Which doesn't mean it's impossible. But it does mean something important. If it happened under extremely specific conditions. Conditions Noah would need to explain. But Noah didn't like explaining. He liked narrating. That's a difference intelligent people recognize. A narrator shapes events for effect. A witness reports them for accuracy. The more detectives studied Noah, the more they realized he spoke like a narrator. He used phrases that sounded like headlines. He repeated key visuals. He gave the public scenes. He gave the police story beats. And now, detectives began looking backward. Not at the night of the murder. At the marriage. Because staged crimes don't start at 4:30 a.m. They start months earlier. With control. With isolation. With a person slowly becoming trapped inside a story they didn't write. Madison's diary was found in a closet box under old school papers. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. It was practical. Entries about arguments. Money. Noah monitoring her phone. Noah telling her which friends were bad influence. Noah calling her parents manipulative. Noah using love as a leash. One entry stood out. I love him, but I'm shrinking. Another one. He says if I leave, he will make sure I don't take Ava. And then the most chilling kind of line, because it's so ordinary. I'm looking at hotels. Investigators pulled Madison's phone records, not just calls, search history, app activity. And there it was. A hotel booking attempt from the night before her death. One night. Madison had searched for rooms, availability, pricing. She didn't complete the booking. Maybe she got scared. Maybe he walked into the room. Maybe he took her phone. Maybe she talked herself out of it. But the attempt mattered because it established intent. Madison wasn't planning a vacation. She was planning an exit. Then detectives pulled texts. Madison had messaged a friend that night, not with a dramatic, help me scream, with a quiet threat. If he doesn't stop, I'm leaving. That kind of line is dangerous in an unstable relationship, because it threatens the one thing controlling people fear most. Loss of control. Investigators reconstructed the final night with what they had. Not what Noah said, what devices and behaviors suggested. Madison and Noah were both home. There were combative texts between them while under the same roof, something people do when they're too scared to speak out loud. Noah's device logs showed erratic movement around the property late that night. Then periods of silence. Airplane mode. That stands out, because airplane mode isn't just no calls. It's a break in traceability. It's a choice. When detectives confronted Noah with inconsistencies, he didn't react like a grieving husband. He reacted like someone losing control of a script. At first, he tried to lean into charm, then he became tight, defensive. He began offering explanations that sounded clever, but didn't fit. He said maybe the watch was wrong. He said maybe the logs were misread. He said maybe intruders came earlier. He started building a new story on top of the old one. But building stories is not the same as building truth. Truth has constraints. If the card was removed at 1:21 a.m., someone removed it at 1:21 a.m. If Madison's heart stopped at 4:12 a.m., she didn't die at 4:30. If Noah's phone shows movement, he wasn't motionless on the floor. At this point, detectives made a decision. Not publicly, privately. Noah was no longer the husband. He was the suspect. But smart investigators don't flip a switch and accuse. They set a trap made of facts. They brought Noah in again, quietly, during a Memorial weekend. The family was grieving. The town was tired. Noah was still playing his role. Detectives asked him to come, identify someone. A routine request, a simple errand. Noah agreed, because Noah believed he was still steering the room. In the interview, they did something different this time. They didn't start with emotion. They started with precision. They asked him to repeat his timeline. Exact, minute by minute. Noah spoke confidently. He described the intruders, the tape, the struggle, the guns. Then detectives laid out the contradictions like chess pieces. The camera card removal time, the basement window size, the smartwatch data, the motion logs, the failed reenactment of the nose dial, Madison's hotel search, the text to her friend. Noah's face changed in phases. First disbelief, then irritation, then calculation, then something else. A kind of quiet panic that doesn't show up as shaking or crying. It shows up as bargaining. Noah tried to pivot into a softer confession. Not full responsibility, a controlled confession. He said they argued the night before. He said it was about Ava. He said Madison threatened to take the baby. He said he lost control. Notice what's happening. He was offering motive, but he was also placing blame. He said Madison started it. He said she pushed him. He said she hit him. He said his judgment became clouded. That is a classic confession style from an intelligent offender. Not because it's true, because it's strategically human. It introduces conflict. It implies mutual escalation. It reframes murder as a tragic outcome of emotion. But then the question becomes, if it was a loss of control, why the staging? Why the dog? Why the ripped camera? Why the missing card? Why the careful placement of the baby beside the body? Those are not the actions of a man in a fog. Those are the actions of a man trying to engineer the world's reaction. Noah admitted to staging. He said after Madison died, he panicked. He said he knew he couldn't dispose of the body, so he decided to create intruders. He said he tied himself up. He said he used tape. He said he tore the room apart. He said he killed the dog to make it look real. He said he placed Ava beside Madison so they wouldn't hurt her, and so it would look like intruders left the baby. Every statement made the story worse, because it wasn't just murder. It was manipulation, not only of police, of the public, of Madison's parents, of everyone who watched him cry on camera. And through all of it, Noah kept doing something subtle. He kept returning to framing himself as overwhelmed. A man pushed too far. A man who snapped. A man who never meant it. But the evidence didn't show snap. It showed sequence. Remove camera card. Control timeline. Stage break-in. Control narrative. Call 911 in a way that becomes legendary. That's not snap. That's design. And here's where the case became even darker. Detectives revisited Madison's diary entries with a different lens. Not marital stress, but escalating coercion, isolation, financial control, threats around custody. That type of relationship creates a dangerous moment when the victim decides to leave. Because leaving is the moment control breaks, and people who need control don't handle that break peacefully. They handle it decisively. Noah Kincaid had built his identity around being the provider, the pilot, the man with resources, the man who saved Madison from ordinary life. If Madison left, it wasn't just divorce, it was humiliation. It was loss of image. It was loss of Ava. It was the collapse of his manufactured story. So detectives believed Madison's attempt to book a hotel wasn't random. It was her last move. And Noah's response wasn't a sudden rage. It was a final assertion of control. By the end of the interrogation, Noah's performance was over. But what he gave them wasn't pure truth. It was a confession shaped by self-preservation. A confession designed to reduce intent, to reduce premeditation, to reduce the sentence. And the court would later have to decide the difference between a man who snapped and a man who planned. Because the public still had one question that refused to die. If Noah was smart enough to stage all of this, how did he get caught? And the answer is always the same. Not because he wasn't intelligent, because intelligence doesn't protect you from arrogance. Arrogance makes you believe you can outsmart data. And in the end, the things that exposed Noah weren't dramatic. They were small. A missing card removed too early. A heart rate spike at the wrong minute. A phone that moved when a man claimed he couldn't. Tiny fractures. That split the entire story open. By the time the case reached court, the question was no longer who killed Madison Hart. That was settled. The question was how the world had almost believed something else. Because Noah Kincaid didn't just kill his wife, he nearly rewrote reality. And the courtroom became the final battleground between two versions of the same night. One framed as emotion, the other framed as intention. The prosecution didn't rush. They understood something crucial. Jurors don't struggle with violence, they struggle with motive. So instead of beginning with the murder, they began with the pattern. They showed the jury Madison's life shrinking, not in dramatic explosions, in quiet permissions. Who she talked to, where she went, how money moved through the house. They introduced the diary, not as poetry, as documentation. Entries about Noah checking her phone. Entries about arguments that ended with apologies she wrote, not him. Entries where she blamed herself for his anger. Then they showed the hotel search, the timestamp, the incomplete booking. And they asked the jury a simple question. Why would a 19-year-old mother with an 11-month-old child look for a hotel late at night? Not curiosity, not boredom. Exit. Then they walked the jury through the final hours. Slowly, precisely. At 1:21 a.m., the security camera memory card is removed. No intruders, no chaos, no emergency, just a decision. At that time, Noah is awake. Phone data places him moving. At 3:58 a.m., Madison's smartwatch shows sleep. At 4:05 a.m., her heart rate spikes. At 4:12 a.m., it stops. Noah claims the attack occurs later. The data does not agree. Then they show Noah's movement logs. They show the jury how, being tied up doesn't match a phone registering consistent motion. They demonstrate the impossibility of the nose dial myth, not by mocking it, by trying it, failing, again and again. They show the basement window. They show the measurements. They show the jury how bodies do not pass through lies. Then comes the dog. The prosecution doesn't linger. They let the image sit. A leash, time, deliberation. That act alone fractures the defense's entire emotional narrative. Because panic does not linger. And panic does not choreograph cruelty. Then they dismantle the confession. Because Noah did confess. But not honestly. He admitted to killing Madison. But he denied planning. He framed it as loss of control. The prosecution asked the jury to consider this, if this was a spontaneous act. Why remove the camera card first? Why stage a robbery? Why kill the dog? Why place the child beside the body? Why call 911 in a way designed to become unforgettable? Those aren't reactions. They are steps, and steps imply foresight. The defense did what defenses always do in cases like this. They leaned into complexity. They talked about stress. They talked about sleep deprivation. They talked about postpartum strain. They talked about jealousy and fear. They framed Noah as a man overwhelmed by circumstances, a man who snapped. They suggested Madison had an affair. They implied provocation. They used language that softened edges. But there was one thing they couldn't undo: sequence. Because premeditation doesn't require days or weeks. It requires time to think. And Noah had time. He had time to remove the memory card. Time to decide what story he would tell. Time to stage the house. Time to kill the dog. Time to bind himself. Time to call 911 theatrically. Time to prepare his face for cameras. The jury didn't need to like Madison. They didn't need to hate Noah. They just needed to recognize planning. And when the verdict came, it was quiet. Guilty. Premeditated murder. Obstruction of justice. Animal cruelty. No dramatic outburst. No collapse. Noah stood still. Because by then, the performance was over. The sentence ensured he would never again control the narrative. But here's where the case earns its name. The murder that fooled the world. Because for weeks, people defended him. They donated. They shared his posts. They repeated his story. And when the truth emerged, many didn't want it. Not because it wasn't convincing, but because it required admitting something uncomfortable. That evil doesn't always look chaotic. Sometimes it looks calm. Sometimes it looks articulate. Sometimes it looks like a man holding a baby and thanking the public. Madison Hart was buried near the water she loved. Her parents now raise Ava, and Noah Kincaid will spend decades inside a system he cannot charm. The final irony is this: Noah believed intelligence would save him, but intelligence is only dangerous when it's paired with humility. When it's paired with arrogance, it leaves fingerprints everywhere. Not on walls, not on weapons, but in time, and time, unlike stories, never lies.